All right, what is up, everyone? Randomonium here. So, patch 10.23 is now on the live servers. It is an absolutely massive patch. This is a patch that's going to have all the item changes. Quite a few content creators have done like really comprehensive videos that were really good, but unfortunately they were like 4 or 5 hours long. So I'm going to try and speedrun some of these changes. I've read the patch notes multiple times. I've listened to a bunch of these different videos to try and see what different people's opinions are. And my goal here is to, for people who don't have the 4 or the 5 hours to listen through and like go into the minutia of all of the item changes, I'm going to try and just give you like a real quick go through of all these items. This really is for people who don't have the time or the willpower to go through all these patch notes and really understand what they're doing. And yeah, hopefully this will be relatively quickly. I'm just going to kind of speed through a lot of this stuff. Obviously the shop change and things like that, and it gives you better recommended stuff. But I found that the recommended stuff isn't great yet. It's probably because they don't have enough data to actually like make good recommendations. But right now, the recommended tab is not that good, in my personal opinion. So starting off with the Marksman Mythic. So you've got Gale Force, you've got Kraken Slayer, and you've got Immortal Shield Bow. So in general, I think that Immortal Shield Bow is going to be kind of the go-to item for Marksman in most of their games. This is the one that gives you the most survivability. It gives you basically kind of like a Steric shield, essentially. It also gives more lifesteal when the other items don't. Kraken Slayer is like a really, really greedy item, but just basically gives you like a lot more damage. And then Gale Force is situational because it gives you basically more mobility, gives you a little dash. So it could be very useful if the enemy team has a lot of catchers or things that have like really like important CC that you have to be able to dodge. In general, you want to go Immortal Shield Bow. Like if you don't know what to go, Immortal Shield Bow is a good default to go. Moving on to tank items, Sunfire Aegis, Frostfire Gauntlet, and Turbo Chem Tank. All these tank items I don't feel are that good. I feel like tanks really got kind of nerfed considerably with Season 11, and I would expect that these items are going to get buffed at some point during Season 11, but I actually have no idea. In general, I would say that Sunfire Aegis is probably what you're going to see top lane tanks go in most games. It's just kind of like the best like overall kind of like damage item that you can go for on a tank, and it's got basically evenly split resistances, so 30 armor, 30 magic resist. Frostfire Gauntlet has more armor than magic resist. Turbo Chem Tank has more magic resist than armor. I think that tanks for the jungle will most likely go this Turbo Chem Tank if they can, assuming it's not like a really, really heavy AD team, just because of the movement speed that it provides on the Righteous. It's basically like a Righteous Glory is just really useful for tank junglers. A lot of people are saying like, oh, it's just a Righteous Glory, but because you can basically rush this item, it's a lot better. Like usually you had to finish your Cinder Hulk before you could go into Righteous Glory if you wanted to do that on like a tank jungler. This you'll be able to finish it a lot sooner, and it does seem like it's better overall. So I think this is going to be kind of like the go-to for the tank junglers, and Sunfire Aegis will be the go-to for top lane tanks. And then Frostfire Gauntlet is going to be much more situational, I think. I can see it being useful in certain cases, like if you really just need to control like areas on the battlefield a lot, but it feels like it's a lot more situational. So I think that this item may need to get buffed if it's going to start seeing a lot more play. Okay, moving on to assassin items. Assassins, or AD assassins, I should specify, got significant buffs in these items. Their items are much better than they were before. First one is Duskblade Drakthar. So the big thing is that this gives your champion invisibility. So any champion can get invisibility now with this item if you get a takedown. So if you get a takedown, you get invisibility for 1.5 seconds. Seems really, really busted. Seems really, really broken, in my personal opinion. I know some people have commented that this is like a win more item rather than like a win item. Like it's basically just used for snowballing. But I mean, I feel like this item could be really good in a lot of those team fights. It's really easy to lose track with somebody who goes invisible and stuff like that. Eclipse, this feels like this is going to probably be like the go-to most of the time for AD assassins. It just gives you better dueling power, allows you to tank shred a little bit better. So basically if you hit with 2 separate basic attacks or abilities, you deal an additional 8% max health physical damage, you gain 30 movement speed, and you gain a shield. and it also gives all of your legendary items 4% magic penetration, 4% armor penetration. So I think this is going to be like the go-to. Eclipse will probably be the go-to for most AD assassins. If the team is really, really squishy, they may go towards this Prowler's Claw, which basically just gives you way, way more damage. So you basically get another dash, you deal additional 100 damage, and you deal 15% increased damage to the target. And also, all of your legendaries get flat lethality. So this is basically just to blow people up. So if the enemy team has a lot of squishies, you can go Prowler's Claw. I think if the enemy team is more balanced, you're probably going to go towards Eclipse. I think the Duskblade is going to be more situational, but it could be really, really strong depending on how you play around this invisibility. The invisibility is really kind of... it's kind of where the rubber meets the road for this item. So if you can play around the invisibility really well, Duskblade is definitely the best. But if you can't play around the invisibility, then the safer option is the Eclipse. All right, moving on to the AP Mage mana item. So they separated it into AP mana items and AP non-mana items. So first up is Liandry's Anguish. This is basically an upgraded Liandry's Torment. Basically pretty similar. So it burns for 15 plus 2.5% AP plus 1% max health damage per second for 4 seconds. And you gain magic penetration per second against the burning targets up to 25%. And then your legendary items get 5 haste. So I think this is going to be really useful if the enemy team is pretty well balanced, or if they have too many tanks. If they have like 2 or 3 tanks, this is probably the go-to item. If they are really squishy, then Luden's Tempest may be the better option. So Luden's Tempest gives you burst damage, just like Luden's Echo used to do. But it also now gives you movement speed. So you get 30% movement speed. It's only on a 10-second cooldown. So this is actually a great item for like laning a lot of times. It can be a great item for just like 1v1 type duels. And yeah, if the enemy team is really squishy, this is kind of like a go-to. And then Everfrost, this is the one that looks like the most broken to me for the AP mana items. So basically it's like a GLP, but if you hit them in the center, it's a root instead of a slow. So 100 magic damage and a cone, slowing enemies by 65% for 1.5 seconds, and if you at the center of the cone are rooted instead. And it's only a 20-second cooldown, so you can use this every single minion wave. So every single minion wave, you basically gain a cone that slows or roots if you hit them in the center, and all of your legendaries gain additional 15 ability power. So I feel like this is probably the go-to item for most AP mages that need mana. I feel like this is kind of like in most cases, this is going to be the best out of the 3. If the enemy team has a lot of tanks, then you go Liandry's Anguish, and if the enemy team doesn't have any tanks, then maybe you go Luden's Tempest. Everfrost feels like it's like the most balanced out of the 3. All right, moving on to the non-mana AP Mythic. So you got Hextech Rocketbelt, very similar to Protobelt. So I believe that the arc is like wider than it was before, and now you also gain 75% movement speed towards enemy champions for 2 seconds. So it's kind of the mobility option. You see Bulgarian's ability power, haste, or health and haste, and we'll get into the differences between cooldown reduction and haste a little bit later. And then your legendaries get 5 magic penetration. So this is kind of a mobility option. Riff Maker, this is kind of like the Drain Tank option. So you can see it gives you Omnivamp, so 15% Omnivamp, and Omnivamp means that you heal off of everything, essentially. And then for every second in combat, you deal 3% bonus damage at maximum strength. The bonus damage is converted to true damage, and you gain 5% magic penetration. So this gives you % magic penetration, which is really good into tanks. And then you basically can drain... you basically gain a lot of Omnivamp, and you deal increased damage, and actually turns into true damage as well. So this item seems to be really, really, really strong. Like this item, I think most likely item to get nerfed on the AP side. Just the Omnivamp is so good on so many champions. Think, Vladimir, Swain, Mordekaiser, Silas. The list goes on. I can see even like Diana or something like that going on an item like this. This item seems really cool, and I hope I can play it. Night Harvester, multi-kill. So this is basically, it's like Dark Harvest, but you don't need to have a health threshold in order to proc it. So damaging a champion deals additional 175 to 250 magic damage and grants you 25% movement speed for 1.5 seconds. And you can proc it on each champion once per 60 seconds. So it's great for, say, Karthus or... any type of team fighting, AP, damage dealer. Yeah, it basically works like a Dark Harvest, except it's not based off a health threshold. So yeah, it's really good. This seems like a really good item too. So I would say that Riff Maker and Night Harvester definitely seem like they're really strong. I don't know about Rocketbelt. Rocketbelt feels a little bit more underwhelming compared to the other two, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just undervaluing the mobility that it provides. Okay, moving on to the Fighter Mythic. So Trinity Force, very similar, but they're really kind of putting it into like longer kind of duel type of things. So you can see here, basic attacks grant 25 movement speed. Additionally, increases your base attack damage by 6%, stacking up to 5 times. So you can increase your base attack damage by up to 30%, which means that your Spellblade proc is actually a lot stronger too. So actually your Spellblade proc, if this is fully stacked, your Spellblade proc will do 260% of your base attack damage. So you still get the Spellblade proc, and it grants all of the legendary items 10 attack speed. So every champion that used to want to build this item is still going to want to build this item. You're talking your Jaxes, your Irelias, and probably a lot of other like top lane skirmishers, and maybe a few Juggernauts too. I can think Darius could probably still build this, stuff like that. All right, Gore Drinker. This is a survive burst. So basically, you're getting kind of like a Tiamat active. It's the best way to describe it. And what it does is it restores health equal to 20% of your attack damage plus 12% of your missing health for each champion. So it's kind of like a Renekton Q. So it can be really strong. So right, if you hit multiple champions, you can heal like well over 50% of your health with this item. But obviously you want to try and proc it as at a low health value as possible because it's based off your missing health. So if you don't proc it too early enough, then you'll die, basically. So it's kind of like it's the question of like how greedy you want to be. Do you try and proc it earlier in the fight, or you'd really try and like sweat it out to try and get the max amount of healing that you can get? And additionally, you gain additional attack damage for each 5% of your missing health. And you gain 5 ability haste. So basically, like I can see, like this actually like really good on Olaf because Olaf gains attack speed based off of missing health. Now he also gains attack damage based off missing health. So kind of interesting. Stridebreaker. This is kind of similar to. Oh, I guess there's no real good example of what this is actually like. So basically, it gives every champion a dash now. And then also it basically gives you kind of a Tiamat that kind of slows people on top of it. This seems like a lot more situational, personally. I think that most people are going to go towards this Gore Drinker or the Trinity Force or the Divine Devour or the Divine Sunder that we have down here. I feel like this is the most situational out of the 4. So yeah, I think that in general, yeah, I think this is definitely the most situational out of the 4. And finally, we get Divine Sunder. So this is basically gives you a Sheen proc, but the Sheen proc it deals damage based off of the target's maximum health rather than based off of your base attack damage. So it's basically like the anti-tank version of Trinity Force. So you can see it deals additional 10% of the target's maximum health physical damage. And if the target is a champion, you restore 50% of the damage amount or 30% if you're a range user. So this gives you basically like not only like a Trinity Force like Sheen proc, but also gives you kind of like a grasp where you restore some of your health. And kind of the really cool thing is that it grants all legendary items 5% armor penetration and 5% magic penetration. So if you have a hybrid champion, this item is actually really good. It's giving you both armor penetration and magic penetration. So this actually has one of the best mythic passives in the game if you can make use of both the armor pen and the magic pen. All right, now we're getting into the support item mythics. So Sherelia's Battle Song. It's basically the same thing as Revelry, except that it also gives you 40 to 60 magic damage on the next 3 basic attacks or ability hits against champions. So it's kind of like a Nami E for your entire team. And overall, I think it's pretty good, but I think that Locket is probably the best out of all of them. So Locket is very similar. The shield seems a bit stronger than what I remember. And then also it gives you an aura where all champions get 5 armor and 5 magic resist. And for every legendary you get 2 armor and 2 magic resist in addition to that aura. So you basically can like buff your allies' armor and magic resist by like 10 or more when you get into like the late game. So this feels like it's the strongest. I feel like this is like probably going to be the go-to for most like supportive tanks or even potentially some enchanters and stuff. Another thing they did was they've changed it now, so it's not based off of your level, it's based off of ally levels. So that's big. So like even if you're like under leveled, you'll still be able to give them a rather large shield because it's based off of their level, not yours. Moonstone Rune Renewer, this is mainly for healing champions, but it doesn't have to be healing champions. It basically gives every single champion in the game a heal. So it says you don't have to have a heal in order to take this item. So as long as you're affecting champions with basic attacks or abilities in combat, you restore health to an ally. And the amount that you heal scales with how long you're in combat. So you could even see like tanks take this item potentially. Like anybody who feels like they can survive for a long period of time, you can like start pumping out a bunch of bunch of healing with this item. You basically be healing like well over 100 health every 2 seconds to your most damaged ally. Imperial Mandate, this is for like mage supports. This is kind of the mage support item. So anytime you slow or immobilize a champion, you deal additional damage, and you mark the champion, and then if one of your allies attacks them, it detonates the mark, dealing more damage. And it gives you more ability power. So this is kind of like the carry support item if you don't want to go into like one of the actual like EP mage mythics. Okay, this is where they talk about ability haste. So the way it basically works is like when you're at low values, one ability haste is roughly 1 CDR. Ability haste is slightly worse. I think it's something like 10 ability haste is like 9 CDR. But you start getting like CDR was exponential growth. That's why they had to cap it at 40%. Ability haste is not. It's going to be linear. So if you have a 100 ability haste, that corresponds to 50 CDR. So that's kind of like the big difference, is they kind of reworked the CDR system so there's no caps anymore, and CDR now scales linearly, and it's based off of like how many more spell casts you get off in a rotation, essentially. So that's all you really need to know, is that at low values, it's roughly the same. It's not capped, and you get... it's not as valuable if you get into higher values. Like if you do 10 CDR, if you're going from like 30 to 40% CDR, it's not the same as going from 30 to 40 haste. It's not near as good with the 30 to 40 haste. But overall, I think it's a better system because you can do some really cool, like nutty, like CDR builds now. Let's talk about Vamp Effects. So Lifesteal, Physical Vamp, and Omni Vamp. The big thing is Lifesteal now deals on-hit effects. So if you do on-hit builds, Lifesteal is actually really good on you. So that'll come into play a little bit later with some of these items. They also changed Critical Strike. So now most, or I think all, Critical Strike items have 20% crit rather than 25% crit. But they reduced the Critical Strike damage. So it's not 200%, now it's 175. So anybody who does crit got slightly nerfed by this change. Okay, now we're getting into the new legendary items. So the Collector, this basically gives you like a mini Elder Drake. So if you drop them to 5% health, it'll execute them rather than like, I think, what is it, 20% on Elder Drake? So you can see like Dravens, Pikes, Djinns, anybody that, does a lot of burst damage. This allows them to burst even harder. Devori Quick Blades is very similar to Spear Shojin, but it's crit only. So basically any critical strike with basic attacks reduces your non-ultimate ability cooldowns by 20% of the remaining cooldown. Big ones that I can kind of think of at the top of my head, that probably like Xayah is probably the one that like immediately comes to my mind. Obviously like Tryndamere, Yasuo, those type of champions could also be really good with this. But yeah, it's basically like a crit version of Spear Shojin. So I'm sure that'll be perfectly balanced because Spear Shojin was perfectly balanced, right? Okay. Force of Nature, they're bringing it back. So now it's an item that does magic resist, and it gives you increased movement speed. But if you run on the numbers, this item is not gold efficient, even if it's fully stacked. So I feel like they're probably going to buff this item. Either that or I'm undervaluing movement speed because, if you're calculating like gold efficiency, it's a flawed system. But yeah, if you go off of like the numbers for movement speed, Force of Nature is not gold efficient. So Serpent's Fang, this is the anti-shielding item. So we have anti-healing items for grievous wounds, and now we also have an anti-shielding item. So basically this is mainly for assassins, attack damage lethality, and it allows you to do increased damage to shields. Verizon's Focus, this is for people who are either artillery mages or people who deal a lot of CC. So it says damaging champion with a non-target ability over 750 range or immobilizing, reveals them and increases the damage by 10% for 6 seconds. So problem is this item is really, really not gold efficient. It only gives you 100 ability power and it's 3,000 gold. So really expensive, not a lot of ability power, and this is a really situational effect. So this item feels really situational to me. Cosmic Drive, this item gives the most ability haste of any item. It gives 30 ability haste, and this really is to try and, for people who want to go those ability haste builds, and it gives you increased movement speed that scales off of your ability haste. So it's kind of like if you want to have like tons and tons of ability haste and like move really fast, you go Cosmic Drive. Demonica Brace, this is kind of another burn option if you don't want to go Leandries, but it does stack. So you could go Leandries and Demonica Brace if you wanted to. So you can see it deals 1.5% max health damage every second for 4 seconds, and you also gain armor and magic resist while the champion's affected, and it also scales up with each additional champion. So most battle mages and AP bruisers are going to freaking love this item. You're talking your Singe, you're talking your Vladimir, your Swain, your Silas, your Mordekaiser, Diana potentially would like this item. You know, any one of those type of champs likes to be in the thick of battle that scales off of AP. It's gonna like it. Sherelia's Grudge. This is basically going to be the the armor penetration item for AD spellcasters or assassins. So I could see something like Misfortune building this, but this is mainly designed more for assassins. Does attack damage, armor penetration, ability haste. Misfortune may go a different item because she does scale up a crit pretty well as well. But yeah, you could see, I can see a lot of champions potentially using it, but it'll be more situational. And also it gives you kind of an AD Rylai on top of that. So this item feels really strong in my personal opinion. So damaging abilities slow enemies for 30% for 1 second. So it's like a Rylai, but you also gain 30% armor penetration. So yeah, interesting. Silvermere Dawn, this is basically the non-crit version of Mercurial. So they gave Mercurial crit, so this is the non-crit version. So it basically gives you the Quicksilver, and it's attack damage, health, and magic resist. Kembuck Chainsword, this is anti-healing for fighters and assassins. So dealing physical damage applies grievous wounds. If the target's below 50% health, it increases to 60% grievous wounds. Chemtech Purifier, this is anti-healing for more support champions. So it's a cheaper item, 2,300 gold only. It gives mana regen. So dealing magic damage applies grievous wounds, and if you immobilize them, it increases to 60%. Staff of Flowing Water, this is for enchanters. Healing or shielding an ally grants you both 15% movement speed and 20 to 40 ability power for 3 seconds. So it allows you to buff up anybody who can make use of ability power. Stirring Wardstone. So this one seems kind of interesting. So you have to be level 13 to purchase it, and it allows you to store up to 3 purchase control wards. I haven't really got to experiment with this one yet. They're saying that it's solving the age-old inventory crunch for support players. So I'm assuming this means it doesn't take up an inventory slot. But I really haven't had a chance to experiment with it. But it is 1,100 gold, and you have to be level 13. So this is like late game for supports, potentially. And if you place 20 stealth wards, it turns into this next item, this Watchful Wardstone. So it gives you 25 ability haste. It allows you to sort of 3 purchase control wards, and also increases your stealth ward and control ward placement caps by 1. So now you can place 4 stealth wards or 2 control wards. And then if you pay an additional, I think this was 1,100, so you pay an additional 1,200 gold, so total cost of 2,300 gold. Then you gain 40 ability haste and 10 movement speed. But it's still kind of the same item. You still have 4 and 2. Yeah. And allows you to store 3 purchase control wards. So this item, I think you're not going to see a lot of people pick it up in solo queue, but this item is going to be huge in professional play. You might even see like junglers doing this. So both supports and junglers will be going towards this item in the late game. And the downside of that is that traditionally, if there's too much vision available to professional teams, it slows down games and makes games more boring. So I am a little bit worried that this is going to kind of stall out games more. All right, updated legendary items. Mortal Reminder, it now has crit chance, and it doesn't give armor pen. So it's really just kind of the AD crit version to get grievous wounds, essentially. Ginsu's Rage Blade, the big thing now is that they removed the stacking attack speed, and they also removed the penetration and stuff like that. So now it's attack speed and critical strike chance. And what it does, and this is huge, is that it gives 45 physical damage on hit per 20% of critical strike chance, and you can no longer critically strike. So this item was really broken on PvE because it was magic damage. So they changed it to physical damage on hit. It used to be magic damage on hit, so this item could convert your damage profile from like fully physical to fully magic just by purchasing this item. But now they made it physical damage, so it's not as good, but it's still really cost effective. So I think you're going to see a lot of champions go this item because 45 physical damage on hit is more gold efficient than 20% critical strike chance. It just you'll deal more damage if you go with this item, but you have to pay, the gold for it. Then every third basic attack applies your on hit effects twice, so that makes your on hits even stronger. And I believe it will synergize well with champions that have on hit passives and stuff like that. So Vayne, Diana, those type of champions. All right, Phantom Dancer. So they removed the lifeline. Now they made it so that it was more for like if you can survive a long period of time, then you gain a damage boost. So lifeline got moved to Immortal Shield Bow, and now it basically gives you ghosting and 10% move speed for 2 seconds, and if you attack 5 times, it gives you 40% attack speed. I feel like this item is really situational now. So this item has gone from being like a lot of champions buying it to now it's going to be really situational. Lord Dominic's Regard gives you crit chance now and armor penetration. So they basically made this is like the AD AD crit armor penetration item. When the Sherelia's Grudge or whatever it's called, that's for like a non-crit AD armor penetration. Essence Reaver, it now has a Spellblade passive, so it's basically like Trinity Force, but instead of doing 200% bonus AD or base AD, it now does 100% base AD plus 40% bonus AD physical damage. It restores 3% mana. So maybe an Ezreal uses this, maybe an Ashe uses this. I'm not sure. This item feels even more niche, I think, right now. I'm not sure how good this item's going to be. It doesn't look that great on paper to me. Infinity Edge, they now made it so that you do not want to buy this item first. Like this is like a third or fourth item that you want to get. So they changed it so now you gain an additional 8% critical strike damage per 20% critical strike chance. So max 40% additional critical strike damage when you're at 100% critical strike chance. Now remember, they also reduced the amount of damage that critical strikes do. So instead of it being 200, now it's 175. Now you're adding it back an additional 40. So now if you have this item with 100% critical strike chance, it's 215% on your critical strikes. So overall, this item's a little bit worse. You don't want to buy it first item. You want to save it for third or fourth item, or maybe even like fifth item. Manamune. So you gain bonus AD equal to 2% maximum mana, and now you can't just spam it on, like, you can't just spam abilities off cooldown and gain mana. You have to strike a target with an attack or an ability to consume a charge. So you can't like wait and fountain and like spam it and gain bonus mana. Muramana, you still gain bonus attack damage equal to 2% maximum mana, and when targeting champions, ability strikes deal additional damage equal to 4% max mana. So it's ability strikes and basic attacks. So it's better on champions that also rely on their abilities too. Archangel Staff, the same. You have to strike a target with an ability. So auto attacks do not stack this. It's only abilities that stack it. So it's going to stack slower for magic users than Manamune will. And when you transform, you no longer gain a shield with it. Now, instead, you gain bonus ability power equal to 5% of your mana, and you increase your total mana by 5%. That also scales with AP. So this is like an all offensive item now. It used to be the Service and Brave was also offensive and defensive. Now it's a purely offensive item. All right, Spellblade. So now it's gone from a 1.5 second cooldown to a 2.5 second cooldown, but it is a stronger proc, so it's 150% base AD. It used to be, I believe, 75% base AD, and then 60% ability power. So it's more of a it's a burstier form of a Spellblade proc. Alright, Blade of the Rune King. Basic attacks are 10% melee, 6% for range, so a little bit worse the target's current health. And they remove the active. Now it's just you simply attack a champion 3 times to deal additional magic damage and steal some of their movement speed. But still roughly the same. Black Cleaver, they changed this now, so dealing physical damage applies the 4% armor reduction up to 6 times, 24%, but you don't get the movement speed. Now damaging attacks and abilities gets a fully shredded enemy, deal an additional 5% of the target's missing health and physical damage. So, this is one of those type of things where it gives you armor shred, and then it also allows you to kill low health targets easier. So it still kind of fulfills a similar role, but you don't gain that movement speed that you would from the Phage passive. Ravenous Hydra now works on ranged champions. So if you're a ranged champion, you can now get Ravenous Hydra. So you're talking Nars, you're talking Urgot, you're talking Marksman, whatever you want. They can all get Ravenous Hydra and Titanic Hydra. Now gives you 15% Omnivamps. Remember, Omnivamp is off of everything. So abilities, attacks, AP, AD, it all works. You don't have an active. It's only a passive. So that's what they do. That's another big change they changed with all of the Hydra items. No active, only a passive. Titanic now gives you bonus attack damage equal to 1% of your maximum health. And you still get the cleave, but remember this is the passive cleave. You don't get the active cleave anymore. Wit's End, so it doesn't give healing anymore. Now it gives movement speed on hit, so it grants 20 movement speed for 2 seconds. The on-hit magic damage is still really good, 15 to 80. So this item is really gold efficient. It's a question of can you fit it into your build? Because a lot of the people that would want to build this item may want to go like Ginsu's and crit items, but obviously since this item does give you crit, it kind of, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how many champions try to go towards Wit End. Maul of Malmortius, they actually tried to change it so that now it's more power is in that lifeline that they have. You can see gain 200 plus 20% maximum health, magic damage, shield for 5 seconds. So now it's actually pretty good on people who try to health stack. Death Stance, now this is purely like an anti-physical damage item. So you can see that you ignore 35% or 15% if you're melee range physical damage. So physical damage is the important part. You take it for over 3 seconds instead of instantaneously. And then they also changed it so you don't gain the you don't like heal based on the percentage of the damage you deal. Now champion takedowns will cleanse the remainder of Ignore Pain's remaining damage, grant you 30% movement speed, and restore 10% of your max health over the duration. So now it's really based off of can you get a champion takedown so that you can cleanse the amount of damage that you're taking over those 3 seconds. So this is really for physical damage, Maul is for magic damage, and then Sterix is for team fighting. Yeah, so there's Sterix. Sterix is now for team fighting. So dealing damage or taking damage grants a stack, gives you restores 2% of your max health over 6 seconds. You can gain 1 stack per enemy champion. And then upon taking damage to reduce your health below 30, you gain a shield equal to 200 plus 8% of your maximum health per stack of rage. So if you stack it up to 5 stacks, then that's going to wind up being 40% of your maximum health as a shield. So yeah. It's a big shield if you're able to get all 5 stacks. So this is a great team fighting item for a lot of like fighter types. But I could even see like marksman potentially going for this, because the shield is smaller for range users, but still it could be really useful if you don't go shield bow. Random's Omen, low health, 250 health, 80 armor, 10 ability haste. You still get the slow and reduce their attack damage by 10 and their critical strike damage by 20. Now you have this rock solid. This thing is absolute garbage. It's 0.5% of your maximum health. So like if you've got 4,000 health, then it winds up being so 40 would be 1%, so it's 20. So it reduces damage from basic attacks by 20. Yeah, Not very useful. Frozen Heart. So this is kind of the so they reduce the attack speed from Randuin's, and they put it on Frozen Heart, but it still has the same rock solid. Regardless, Sunfire, they changed this a lot, so I don't think it's as strong as it used to be. They definitely kind of nerfed it, I think. You definitely don't want to rush it first item. You want to wait a little bit on this one. So, gain 100 plus 100% bonus health shield. This decays over 2.5 seconds. So because it's based off of bonus health, you want to get this this item once you actually have some bonus health to increase the amount of the shield. So you don't gain health anymore, now you gain a shield. And then taking damage from a champion grants 3% bonus armor and magic resist for 6 seconds, 1 per enemy champion, to max 15% bonus armor and magic resist. So still same role, team fighting item. So you can combine like Gargoyle Stoneplate with Sterix. I think could be really good if you want to really team fight. And you don't take reduced damage when you activate it anymore. Or sorry, you don't deal reduced damage when you activate this anymore. So you gain like a massive shield. And you can still deal full damage when you activate this. So maybe it's better for like fighters, but it doesn't seem like it's as good on tanks. So another potential tank nerf. Abyssal, now it's immobilizing a champion, causing them to take 10% increased damage over 4 seconds. This is great for like your entire team, right? It's not just magic damage increased, it's all damage is increased. So it's a great damage amp for your entire team. So I can think like the champion that I think of when I think of this item is Amumu, right? He bandage tosses in, lands a 5-man ultimate. Now everyone on your team deals an additional 10% damage to everyone on their team. Seems pretty good. So Thornmail, the big issue with Thornmail was that it only procced if the person attacked you. So if they ignored you, like you couldn't deal grievous wounds. Now it's based off of when you're struck by an attack, or if you immobilize them, you can apply grievous wounds. So if you're struck by an attack, you deal damage to them and you apply 40% grievous wounds. If you immobilize them, you apply 60% grievous wounds. So I really like this change. This is a great change. One of the best changes for tanks in this entire patch. Zeke's Convergence, they made it a little bit easier because Zeke's was always like really hard to understand. So now it's basically that if you immobilize a champion, so it's not based off your ultimate, if you immobilize a champion now, complex attacks abilities apply additional 25 to 50 magic damage to that enemy. So this is great for most supportive tanks or supportive catchers. Anytime you immobilize somebody, you give your carry a huge damage amp. Knight's Vow is actually a lot worse in my personal opinion. So you don't heal off of the damage that your ally deals. Now it's basically that you just redirect damage. So you lose all that healing that you got with Knight's Vow previously. So I think that this item is a lot worse. Instead, what they give you is they give you like increased movement speed when moving towards the ally that you've selected, but it's just not near as good in my personal opinion. So Morello, they got rid of the magic penetration, and now it's just purely grievous wounds. So they kind of simplified it a lot. And it's basically normal grievous wounds is 40%, and if they're below 50% health, then it's 60% grievous wounds, essentially. So it's like a purely like an AP mage grievous wounds item now. Sanguine Blade is still roughly the same. Provides physical vamp instead of lifesteal. So it will vamp off of abilities that deal physical damage as well. So Rapid Fire Cannon changed a little bit, but still roughly the same. Storm Razor got a lot cheaper, but it gives you a lot less stats. So it's I think that's probably better because you still get the passive, but you get it for 500 gold cheaper. Mercurial no longer gives lifesteal, now gives critical strike chance. So it's like the crit Quicksilver item. Runean's cost went up considerably, went up like 800 gold, but now it gives you attack damage, and the bolt damage scales with level. So when you get to like late game, it's now 70% of your total attack damage. So this is like a great like finishing item for marksman now. Like Runean's Hurricane, I think you're going to want to go this item on most marksmen if you get into late game where you're team fighting most of the time, because that's a lot of damage. 70% of your total attack damage on the bolts is really, really good. Rylai is still roughly the same. The slow's a little bit stronger. And it's a little bit more expensive, but still roughly the same. Nashers, what they did was they removed the cooldown reduction. So cooldown reduction is now 0, but ability power is now 100. So it's like purely like ability power and attack speed. So this is kind of like a Diana item. I'm sure Diana mains are crying about the cooldown reduction being lost, but still like 100 AP. Whew, seems pretty good. Bloodthirster now has critical strike chance, but lower attack damage, and it's 100 gold cheaper, but still roughly the same item. But because it has crit, I think it feels way better. Like Draven freaking loves this change, and like I could see a lot of other champions really loving this change. If you go like Shield Bow and the Bloodthirster, it seems like it would be really nice, personally. Edge of Night, roughly the same, just a little bit lower attack damage. Yomu's removed the cooldown reduction, but higher attack damage. Glaive got a cost increase, now gives 20 ability haste. Guardian Angel still roughly the same. Warmogs is still roughly the same, except instead of it being 2.5 max health per half second, it's 5% max health per second. And then the 10 ability haste opposed to 10 cooldown reduction is slightly worse. So Warmog's slightly worse, but still roughly the same. Big thing on Spirit Visage is now increases shielding and healing by 25%. So it used to be only healing by 30%. Now it's shielding and healing by 25%. Deadman's got a little bit more situational, so they dropped the armor. So it used to be 60 armor, now it's 40, but now you gain 5% movement speed. So they made it more of like, they're really amping up the movement part of Deadman's plate. Ardent Sensor, you lose cooldown reduction, you lose some move speed, but you gain mana regen. Redemption, now you have 20% heal and shield power, but it no longer deals damage to minions. People were joking that like this is a Zoe nerf, because Zoe can pick up like Redemption off of her W. Mikhail's still roughly the same. They removed the Harmony passive. Bajai's no longer gives mana, but now gives a little bit of health, and the gold cost went up a little bit. Still a really good item. Zanya's is like the most broken item of this patch right now, so they reduced the cost by 400 gold. They only dropped the ability power by 10. Now gives 10 ability haste. And you'll see later that the change they made to Seeker's Arm Guard is Seeker's is like super gold efficient. So Zanya's is like, I'd buy Zanya's on pretty much any champion that can use it. It's so gold efficient now. It's really gold efficient. Like you definitely should buy it. Banshees, it's kind of like the AP version of Zanya's, but it's not near as good, right? It's 2,500 gold, similar to Zanya's, but they nerfed the ability power the same. And then they also nerfed the magic resist by 15. So Banshee's Veil is actually way worse than Zanya's now. Alright, jungle changes. Hailblade and Ember Knife. Basically the way it works is you smite 5 times, and then you upgrade your Chilling Smite. A lot of people are confused about, do you keep this stuff? Do you keep all these stats, or do you lose them? You do keep them after the 5 smites. So I believe I actually saw that it was 12% Omnivamp when I was in games. This says 10%, but I'm pretty sure it was 12% in game, or maybe that's a tooltip error. You still gain the Tooth and Nail, but you can't do a lot of the crazy stuff you could do with Hunter's Talisman, where you basically just like do a drive-by on wolves or raptors, and they would just heal you up to full. It doesn't do that anymore. Yeah, and then it's still roughly the same for Hailblade and Ember Knife. But in general, I think this is a buff to junglers, because they can really go into their mythic item. They don't have to like go into like Warrior was really good. Like I think Warrior felt good going into. I never felt like Cinderhulk felt good going into, or the other freaking like Warrior was the only one that felt good. Like buying first item. All the rest felt kind of underwhelming to me. So this is kind of cool that we can go like straight into a mythic now. Jungle camp adjustments. This is a lot of changes, so try to go through it really quickly. They're changing the armor and MR values, so that way it feels better when you have magic pen or armor pen and you're a jungler. And they reduce the health values proportionally. So it's still roughly the same, but it should feel better if you have lethality or magic pen in the jungle. They also increase the movement speed of a lot of camps, so it's harder to do the kiting that you would see like Karthus and Kindred and Lilia do. So yeah, the jungle camps move a lot faster now. Oh, and they also added health and mana restore to Gromp. Yeah, that was the other big thing. And the other one was Rift Scuttle. It used to be that Rift had like really, really high armor and magic resist, and then if you immobilized him, it reduces armor and magic resist, but that wasn't really like transparent to people. So now they've made it so that he has a shield, and if you immobilize him, he loses the shield. But it's still roughly the same. It's just a question of now you have a visible shield as opposed to invisible stats that got reduced. So it's just kind of a clarity fix in general. Okay, whew. I was trying to speedrun this, but I'm still going like pretty long on this. So yeah, I'll try to go faster. So they're changing some epic items. So Noon Quiver, this is kind of the new, what's the best way to put it? It's like the marksman version of Lost Chapter. It's like the first item that every marksman's going to want to buy. And it builds out of Longsword, Dagger, Longsword instead of having to like save the 1300 gold to get the BF sword. So it makes it like way less punishing if you can't back with exactly the 1300 gold, because it always felt really bad getting pickaxe instead of BF sword. So now you can just go like Longsword, Dagger, Longsword. You can get Noon Quiver. This is also really great because attacks deal an additional 20 physical damage to minions and monsters. This is so good that like I can see some junglers taking it, because like it says minions and monsters. So now each one of your attacks deal additional 20 physical damage to monsters as well. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering if there's gonna be some. I mean, obviously, if you buy this, then you force yourself to go into one of those marksman mythics. That's the only thing that this item builds into, but it's still kind of funny. All right, Rage Knife. This is a component of Rage Blade, and it doesn't give you like the double on hit every third attack, but it does give you the physical damage on hit per 20% of your critical strike chance. So I can see this being like second item on like Kog'Maw, or I don't know, maybe even like Kai'Sa, Vayne, that type of stuff. Lighting Jewel, this is basically just a mini Void Staff, and it builds into Void Staff. That's all I really know. 15% magic penetration. Leeching Leer, this is an Omni-Vamp item, so this is like for your battle mages and your AP bruiser types, and it builds into a lot of like a lot of those items earlier that we saw that had Omni-Vamp. Oblivion Orb doesn't give flat pen anymore, it just gives Grievous Wound. So it's like a cheap version of Grievous Wounds for AP. So it's 800 gold, similar to Executioner's Calling, but now it's for AP damage dealers. Seekers, like we said, this item is really broken, super gold efficient, 30 ability power, 15 armor, and you can gain additional 30 armor if you kill 30 units. So it goes up to 45 armor and 30 ability power for 900 gold. It is so gold efficient. It is ridiculously good. Like if you're in an AD matchup and you're an AP champion, like this item, you should be rushing this item. It's so gold efficient. Hextech Alternator, this is the replace Hextech Revolver. It's basically the same item, except that it also procs off of abilities. Yeah, not just auto attacks. Bombies is still roughly the same, except you don't gain the Immobilize proc. But yeah, pretty much every single tank has to build Bombies because all the legendaries, or sorry, all the mythics build from Bombies. Winged Moonplate, this is a health and movement speed item. It's not super gold efficient though, but it's obviously like it builds into Dead Man's, and it builds into a few others. I think it builds into Stridebreaker and a few others. But yeah, it's not super gold efficient, but maybe I'm just undervaluing the movement speed. Verdant Barrier, this is the magic resist version of Seeker's Arm Guard. It's not near as good. It costs more, and it provides less resistances, and it takes longer to stack. So it's just not as good, in my personal opinion, as Seekers. Warden's Mail, this is the item that eventually builds into Frozen Heart and Randuin's, and it still has that rock solid passive, but it's bonus health instead of max health, so it's even more useless if you just build a Warden's Mail. So yeah, this item doesn't seem very good to me. Phage, they changed it so it doesn't give you the movement speed anymore. Now it gives you health restore. So it restores 2% of your max health over 6 seconds. Hearthbound Axe. Now Hearthbound Axe has the Rage passive. So attacking a unit grants 20 or 10 movement speed for 2 seconds. T-Mat, like we discussed, only has a passive component. It no longer has an active component. The active component went on Iron Spike Whip. So this has the active portion of T-Mat, but not the passive portion. So I know that a lot of Warwick mains are crying right now over this, and there's a few other junglers that are crying because they can no longer have the active and the passive portion of Tiamat in one item. Beta Glass Mirror. So this is an item for mana regen with ability haste that aren't tied to like Forbidden Idol with heal and shield power. So you can see 20 ability power, 10 ability haste, 15 mana regen. Zeal, more attack speed, less critical strike chance. Executioners, grievous wounds, duration lasts less. Sheen, way cheaper. No longer gives mana, no longer gives cooldown reduction. So you're purely getting the Spellblade passive. So 700 gold for the Spellblade passive. Giant's Belt, a little bit less expensive, a little bit less health. Negatron Cloak, more expensive, more magic resist. Spectre's Cowl, 50 gold more expensive. Stats remain the same. Aegis, 400 gold more expensive, and now you gain 10 ability haste. This is a nerf to Aegis, ever so slightly. Quicksilver Sash, they're now calling out that it excludes Airborne, so you can like cleanse everything except for Airborne. And then Forbidden Idol, heal and shield power went up to 10%, cooldown reduction got removed. Tear of the Gods is now a starter item, 400 gold. There's plenty of math that's been done on like summer school and stuff like that, saying that this item is like you have to be really, really confident. Like this is a ultra greedy purchase if you're purchasing this first, because you're getting like no combat stats whatsoever. Darksteel no longer gives mana, so now it's ability power and health. Dorn's Blade now gives Omnivamp, so potentially if you're like a magic damage dealer, you could take this. I think I saw a Mordekaiser take this in one of my games, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it gives Omnivamp rather than like Lifesteal. Dorn's Ring, now killing a minion restores 6 mana, and if you don't have mana, then the excess mana is converted to health at a 50% rate. So you either heal 6 mana or 3 health. So this is great for, you know, Akali, Katarina, Vladimir, like a lot of these type of champions. Dorn's Ring is now a decent item on them. Cloak of Agility, cost got reduced, critical strike chance got reduced, Fairy Charm, mana regen got doubled, cost got doubled. Support items, now they deal, they gain Spoils of War quicker, and the Tribute, they gain more gold. So for like the tankier items, you're getting Spoil of War charges quicker, and if you're going for the ranged support items, then your tribute procs are now 20 gold instead of 15 gold. They gave you slight nerfs on a lot of these the tier 3 items, so slight nerfs across the board because those items are just ridiculously gold efficient, but it doesn't affect you too much, and you should be able to get a lot more gold, which allows you to get to your mythic faster. Ninja Tabbies got changed to plated steel caps. They removed GLP, Luden's Echo, so a lot of these items just changed. So like GLP is Everfrost, Luden's Echo is Luden's Tempest, Leandry's Torment is Leandry's Anguish. Protobelt is now Rocketbelt, Sunfire Cape is Sunfire Aegis, Righteous Glory is Turbo Chem Tank, Iceborne Gauntlet is Frostfire Gauntlet, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think you get the idea. The items that they really removed were Adaptive Helm, Athene's, Frozen Mallet, Hextech Gunblade, Spellblinder, Rod of Ages, Sterex, Twin Shadows, Jarm's Fist, Chalice of Harmony, Bilgewater Cutlass, and Kettle's Veil. Those are the items that really got removed. A lot of these just got renamed. Alright, Runes. Conqueror now gives more adaptive force, but less healing. Legend Bloodline got nerfed. It now gives you less lifesteal. But they also changed lifesteal so that now it procs of on-hit effects, so maybe it's still good in some cases. Ravenous Hunter is now Omnivamp instead of damage dealt from abilities and on-hit effects and items. So it's a little bit worse, but maybe it's better. Because it used to be 1.5%, now it's 1% Omnivamp, plus 2% per stack. Overall, I think this actually might be better, because it's Omnivamp. But it depends on the champion. Presence of Mind got changed, so it no longer gives maximum mana or maximum energy. Now it gives you mana regeneration or additional energy regeneration. So it used to be that the synergy with Muramana and Archangels was so strong. That's why some people were building those items, because you could turn Presence of Mind into additional combat stats. Now you can't do that. Now it's just mana regen and health regen. Transcendence now gives 5 ability haste to level 5, 5 ability haste to level 8, and then at level 11 on champion takedowns reduce remaining cooldown of basic abilities by 20%. So this actually kind of synergizes really well with, say, like Navori Quick Blades, which also reduces your your non-ultimate cooldowns by 20% with every critical strike chance. So yeah, I can see this being really good on some champions. Cosmic Insight no longer increases CDR cap because CDR cap no longer exists. Now it gives you 10 item haste and 15 summoner spell haste. So yeah, it could be good if you have multiple actives. And actually it also applies to item cooldowns. So I think it also applies to things like what would it also affect? It affects like the Iron Spike Whip and stuff like that. So alright, Ingenious Hunter. Now you gain 10 item haste per 5 Bounty Hunter stack. Item haste affects all item cooldowns, not just actives. So anything that has an item cooldown, it works on. So it also would work on things like the Night Harvester, stuff like that have a 60-second cooldown. So I think this could be really strong. I think a lot of people are probably sleeping on how strong Ingenious Hunter is now. For the cooldown rune that is now an ability haste rune, now it gives 8 ability haste instead of a scaling 1 to 10% CDR. Time Work Tonic, they just cleared it up so that it's easier for newer players. So because of the way crit changed, they had to change Caitlyn and Jhin and Senna. But they made it so that they're saying that it's roughly the same. It feels like it might be a slight nerf to all 3 of these champions, but their intention is that all 3 of those champions should stay relatively the same as far as power. They nerfed Tryndamere ever so slightly, so now he crit chance per point of fury no longer scales with the levels. Now it's just a flat 0.4%, so it's a little bit better earlier on. It's the same value at level 6, and then at level 11 and above, it's worse. Yasuo, the way they made it is that if he goes above 100% crit, now he gains additional bonus AD. Same with Yone. The reason why they had to do this is because crit items now only give 20% crit instead of 25% crit, and the passives double your crit chance. So if you take 3 critical strike items, that's normally 60% crit, double it, it would be 120% crit, so that additional 20% crit would have been wasted on Yasuo and Yone. Now they convert it to bonus AD. Kali, they gave her a buff on her Q cost because they got rid of Gunblade and Presence of Mind. So now it's gone back to, I believe, like roughly the same, what it used to be, 120 to 80 now. Still very high cost for level 1. Katarina, this is one of the weirdest changes that they kind of snuck in here. Her E and her R now apply on-hit effects, and she deals more hybrid damage and scales with attack speed. So yeah, like on hit Katarina could be a thing in this season. Like I'm confused and slightly aroused, and I don't know what other emotions I'm feeling right now, but this is kind of weird that Katarina now could be an on hit champion. So I need some Katarina mains to tell me, like, is this good? Is this troll? Because I can't quite make sense of it. So Kayle, they felt like her AP build might get a lot worse, so now they made it so her bonus attack speed also scales off of AP. Ornn got changed that now that he only upgrades mythic items. He said the Masterwork upgrade value is roughly 1,000 gold, so he can give his entire team, additional 4,000 gold, not including his item, so that would be up to 5,000 gold. He can't upgrade multiple ones of his items, so he can only upgrade he only gets 1 mythic. So you can only upgrade 1 item rather than 2. So now they made it so that he now gains additional 10% bonus health, armor, and magic resist, rather than just additional 10 bonus armor and magic resist. So now he gains bonus health as well. And also changes so he gains additional 4% bonus health, armor, and magic resist for each mythic item he upgrades. So Ornn may be the one tank that survives the changes, because the tank seems like they got nerfed considerably. But Ornn will still always be meta. Victor, they had to remove his Hex Core. It didn't really synergize very well with the new Mythics, because you want to go towards your Mythic first, but Victor wants to go towards Hex Core, so I just got rid of it. So instead, the way that you upgrade his abilities now is that you gain 1 Hex Fragment for a minion monster kill, 5 from a large minion kill, and 25 from champion takedowns. You get 100 Hex Fragments, you can upgrade an ability. So kind of similar to like the Senna Souls or Thresh Souls, now that you get Hex Fragments for Victor in order to upgrade his passive. A lot of these champions got plus 20 increase on mana growth. So that's not plus 20 mana, that's plus 20 on mana growth. So you can see all these champions: Mumu, Anivia, Camille, Cassiopeia, Cho'Gath. I don't want to read all those names, but it's basically because they got rid of a lot of items that do mana. So most of the items that are mana items are now like the AP Mythic mage items. So it's a lot harder to get mana in Season 11 than in Season 10. So they've compensated on a lot of these champions. So Brand is getting nerfed, I believe. Yeah, he's a little too strong in average play for both mid and support. So they nerfed him ever so slightly. Amumu was also getting nerfed. So sad tears. Because they say that he's too strong in average play. But like he's like horrible at high elo. So yeah, like I don't know. I feel like I would love to see Amumu played more in high elo and professional play. But right now with I don't know, he's just too strong in solo queue, apparently. So they gotta nerf him. Elise now, her Q applies on hit effects. I don't think that's gonna really change. Elise. Seraphine, looks like they're trying to make a better distinction between mid and support. I'm sure it's probably gonna wind up just being buffs all around for her because they want to sell more skins. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, you're seeing damage numbers are going up. Scaling is going up. Yeah, looks like it's actually a buff to her. Twitch, they decided to give Twitch AP ratios now. They're saying that it's not going to be near as good as his AD version, but it's like an off-meta build you can go. Yeah, so the skills worth an AD Twitch. But they're hoping it'll be an exciting alternative for Twitch players. So yeah, AP Twitch could be a thing now. Volibear is also getting more AP scaling. So attack speed per stack now scales with AP. And Sky Splitter now deals more damage to minions. So you could go like an Emax, like Volibear, like AP version. This could be really good. Especially with a lot of the new like AP like bruiser items. Like if you go like Riff Maker and stuff on him. I could see this potentially being viable on Volibear, so I might have to experiment with that a little bit. Oh yeah, and they also have this incoming heal indicator. This is really cool. I saw this in ARAM because I was playing some ARAM games just for fun, but it basically tells you how much you're going to heal from an ability and stuff. It's pretty cool. A bunch of ARAM balance changes. Talking about end of season. There's your Victorious Illusion. They're trying to change ranks so that brand new accounts will have less issues. Yeah, it used to be really bad. A lot of new players get placed in like silver or gold and then just get destroyed for a long period of time. Looks like they're going to try and fix that. They're removing the inter division transition, so you automatically rank up when you reach 100 LP. So there's no promos when going from like gold 4 to gold 3. But you also don't have demotion protection. So if you drop to 0, then you'll go down as well. So you still have promos if you go from like silver to gold or gold to plat, but not like in between, not during the little ranks. And then yeah, they're removing duo Q and master and above. Bunch of other stuff, but that's basically it. So in general, assassins got stronger, mages got stronger, marksmen potentially got stronger. It's hard to tell. Tanks got nerfed considerably. Fighters and like AD fighters and bruisers seem like they're roughly the same power level, but AP bruisers and battle mages got major buffs as well. So that's my general thoughts on this patch. Hopefully it was not too long. If you guys like this, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And additionally, I've got my new item gold efficiency tab that gives you all the details that you could possibly ever want on all of these items. So you can see all the gold efficiencies and everything. Link to that will be in the video description below, and it's also on my Discord. In fact, all of my tools are in the tools channel on my Discord, so I highly recommend you guys check that out if you haven't already. But hope you guys have a fantastic day. This is Randomonium signing off.